Hi, I'm Gretchen Figge, the CEO of COREnology. I'm so happy to be here today with David York, one of our founders. I am lucky to have him as part of our team, and we are going to today talk about COREviews, which is one of our 5 assessments. So I just thought Dave would be the best person to tell us why we did COREviews, where it came from, what were you thinking when you came up with that? What's the origin story?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's one of the most powerful ones that we do. It's one that can be easily overlooked, but I noticed early on when I started to do estate planning and meeting with people that they had unique perspectives. They had unique thoughts and reactions to what I thought were fairly straightforward things, like leaving assets as inheritance, what money is, the concerns that they might have. And one of the big things I noticed were how different couples were, because we all have a money story. As we grow up, there are certain things that are very foundational and very impactful in terms of who we are as people and how we view the world. And whether it's just humanity or growing up in capitalism, whatever it is, money is deep water and money has a huge impact.
Yeah.
And I met so many clients where one spouse grew up in poverty or grew up with very few resources. They married someone who grew up middle class or upper middle class. They just see the world 2 different ways.
That's such a great point.
Yeah. And so as you're trying to deal with things like wealth planning, wealth transfer, the things that happened to us when we were 5, 6, 8, 10 years old. I was talking with a friend the other day, and he checks his retirement account, his savings account, financials at least once a month. At least once a month. He grew up the child of a single parent, and he remembers one time running out of gas when they were 4 years old because mom was trying to stretch every dollar that she had, and them having to walk home at 4 years old. And the worry and the insecurity and the concern he felt that carries over to him today. He's very successful financially. They have great resources, and he never feels like he has enough.
That worry.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I grew up in middle class. We didn't go on extravagant vacations. We didn't, have our second home in St. Moritz or anything like that. But every time I went to the refrigerator, there was food in it.
Right.
And if I wore my jeans, my mom could buy me another pair.
Right.
That's a different life experience. It's not to say I don't check my financials, but I don't check them so I can sleep at night.
Right.
And I don't have that same concern about my children being poor in the way that my dad, who grew up incredibly poor, lived with him his whole life. So we created COREviews to try to not just give us insight into our clients, but to give our clients insight to themselves.
I love that. And I have personally found how it gives insight into each other.
Yeah.
For a couple. Yeah. Conversations you think that you would have between a couple, you don't realize that you haven't had.
Yeah.
And it gives an easy access to conversations. It's one of my favorite parts about it.
Yeah. One of my very favorite questions, a $5 question that gives you $1 million answers, and that is, what is money to you? When you ask somebody, what is money to you? I've had people tell me it is safety, it is security, it's independence.
Yep.
I've heard people tell me it's a responsibility, it's a burden, it's overwhelming.
It's a burden? How interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've had people tell me it's a marker of success. It's a tool.
Yep.
It's a test.
It's freedom.
It's freedom. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Money is different to every single person.
Interesting.
But it's also, it can be overwhelming. And again, this is one where I see couples have two very, very different experiences.
Very true.
Yeah.
And so let's just describe the report a tiny bit. If you're using the report, the COREviews assessment, it's probably our longest assessment to take because you hand enter your answers for a lot of them, and we send the assessment to both parties in the couple, and they independently answer their questions. And then it prints out. There's how many questions?
There's a dozen questions.
A dozen questions. It prints out those dozen answers aligned together so you can see the difference in those answers. And so for an advisor, why is that beneficial?
I think it's beneficial in a number of different ways. Again, money is deep water, and it is much more than simply a tangible asset. And so helping us understand how our clients view and perceive that. One of the questions is, do you consider yourself wealthy? I had a client once tell me he was worth $80 million. And he said, you know what? That's not, he had 6 kids. He goes, when you divide that among 6 kids, he goes, that's not very much money. He did not consider himself wealthy.
Okay.
I've had other people who say I'm incredibly wealthy. I have a roof over my head. I have a means to buy my food and to educate my kids. That's incredibly wealthy.
Yep.
So it is so helpful to understand clients. One of my favorite questions is, too much inherited wealth can be a handicap to happiness. And we have clients rank that from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And I've had many couples who one has said, totally agree. Too much inherited wealth is a handicap to happiness, one of the worst things you can do for your children. And their spouse said, totally disagree. It is only a benefit. It's only a blessing. I want to leave as much as I can.
Right.
So when you have one client pumping the brakes and the other putting on the gas, your car's not going to drive very well.
There's going to be a little bit of conflict there.
Yeah.
And maybe not even know it.
Exactly. What we're trying to do is just bring what's underneath the surface to the surface. Why have you guys not done estate planning? Well, if one of you thinks that you should leave as much as possible to your kids because it will be a blessing to them, and the other thinks you should not leave very much to your children because you think it will be a burden to them, you're going to have a struggle getting to an estate plan. And it's not a right or wrong question, but it gives you insight into, okay, what are the concerns? What are the reasons that you see it as a handicap, and how do we address it? We also ask questions about charitable giving and philanthropy, because it's important to understand and see where our clients aligned or different when it comes to charitable perspectives. And what we're trying to do is to just create a framework for people to have those intentional discussions.
I love that phrase so much. Create a framework to allow them to have those discussions between the couple and between them and their advisor, estate planner, people giving them insight into what to do and how to make decisions.
Yeah. Combing the beach is not easy. Playing in a sandbox is, right? And
so much easier.
So much easier.
Yes.
And so if all we have to do is just to create a little bit of a sandbox and say, okay, let's just play with this idea here. And where do we come from? Understanding ourselves, understanding our knee-jerk reactions and all those kind of things can provide so much clarity when it comes to going forward in discussions with our spouse first and foremost, but then our kids as well.
Yep. Well, and you don't really necessarily realize what the difference is in that conversation until you get the results. One of my favorite results is I was with you and you were presenting results to a client, and it was how much inheritance would you want to give your kids, your heirs? And one said, 2 million? And one said 30,000.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's shocking. That's a shocking difference.
Yeah.
And I remember the client saying, my wife doesn't know how much money we have. I need to take her to dinner tonight and have this conversation. Didn't even realize that was an open ticket in their marriage. You think that you have those conversations until you get the results. So it fills in the holes.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point. And I've seen this a lot. I've seen situations where one spouse is very attuned to the financials, but maybe not as in tune with the kids, where they are from a maturation standpoint, growth standpoint. You have another spouse who's really in tune with the kids and the family,
Right.
but may not be as in tune on the finances. And so each of them are coming from a limited perspective. So I think that is really valuable to just, again, have those discussions within a framework. And the other thing I love about it, and it's something that you mentioned, putting the results side by side on this.
Yep.
I find in general, when I work with clients, you have a talker and you have a thinker.
Yep.
You have one who is quick to share their opinions, processes verbally, thinks out loud, or maybe has thought about these things a bit more. And then you have one who maybe this is the first time they're thinking about it, or maybe they're a listener. And if you're not careful, you hear just from one spouse. What I love is to put both spouses, if it's a couple, each person on the same footing. That's why we ask people to fill these out separate, so they're not,
independently,
not cheating off each other. What I've found is that discovery on the other side. How many times spouses are surprised by the other spouse's answer?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you just don't realize you didn't have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I think as an advisor walking into a meeting with preemptively knowing what information you're going to see from each party in the couple is super beneficial because you're not surprised.
Yeah. The other thing is you have to triangulate in on these things. So, for example, I work with a lot of clients who grew up poor. So you say, okay, well, people who are poor have a certain perspective on inheritance. It's not true. I've had some clients who grew up poor and they're like, I never want my children to go through that experience. I want to make sure that I leave them plenty of funds so that they never taste and experience poverty.
Huh?
And then I've had the next client say, that's what made me who I am. Yeah, I worked and I suffered and I had pain, but it created resilience and gratitude and appreciation. And I don't want to rob my children of that struggle and that trial. And so you can't ask one question and expect to get the full answer. It's kind of like, if the police are investigating a crime, right, they ask lots of questions because that gives them a full picture.
From different angles.
From different angles, exactly. Yeah. And so that's all we're trying to do is to get a coherent understanding of each spouse. And we find this is the quickest and easiest way to do it. 5 minutes of time, 5 miles of depth. It's just really helps us hone in pretty quickly.
Yeah. I really like how you say this is deep water because it's throwing the couple into the deep water.
Yeah.
You have to get all that information. Hopefully, then the advisors can help them swim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just a few simple targeted questions. And the nice thing is we've developed these over 25, 30 years of interviewing clients and putting this together. So these are curated questions, but they really create a depth of response.
Well, as we wrap this conversation about COREviews up, what would you say to an advisor on the best use?
Yeah. I say this all the time, but it's true. I think you have to diagnose before you prescribe. I think we live in a prescriptive world that give me the answer, give me the tool, give me the solution, when really you have to diagnose and understand. So to me, this is a diagnostic tool, and it's really intended for the advisor to understand the client, but for the client to understand themselves. And the problem is no amount of AI technology or anything is going to help you understand yourself. That's the role that we as humans can still do. I think be willing to learn about yourself and be willing to learn about your client. And I think once you diagnose that
Yeah.
and you have clarity behind it, the whole rest of the plan falls into place. Otherwise, you're writing prescriptions for issues that may not exist.
That makes so much sense. That's a great phrase to wrap us up on. I really appreciate you being with me today,
Yeah,
David.
absolutely.
And for those of you watching, if you are not familiar with CoreViews, we would love to help you learn about it and practice it. We're delighted to get in the weeds with you. If you want to just contact us through our website or through the email below, we would be happy to help. Thank you so much.